Well, thank you so much for agreeing to speak with me.
Sure, it's a nice day for something.
So you're in Clarksdale, right?
Yep, that's where I am right now. It's all right out there.
And how long have you lived down that way?
Well, it's a long, it's not a simple answer. I bought this property probably 20 years ago, but I only actually moved into it after I sold my house in California last year. But I've been coming to Clarksdale since the late 40s or the early 50s
Mhm.
when I used to have relatives here.
And you're from, is it Mississippi you were born in?
Yeah, about a 3 hour drive from here.
Yeah. And have you lived up north in the past, or have you kind of always stayed kind of that down south somewhere?
Well, I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee.
Mhm.
Then when I was 18, I went to Chicago. And then when I was about 22, I went to California.
Right.
California was real good to me.
Yeah. I bet that was a big change going to California.
Yeah, because out there, blues was like something exotic. They didn't know they didn't know about blues so much like Chicago.
So, my experience with your music is when I first started to play harmonica, I think it was harping on a riff that I heard. I think it was a best of called Harping on a Riff, and obviously had that track on it. And it was some of the first amplified harmonica I'd ever heard. You and a James Harmon album, Extra Napkins, were two of the first things I heard. And I was just blown away by this sound. How a harmonica, that humble little instrument, could sound in the right hands. So I wondered if you could start by saying a little bit about when you first started playing and then got into playing maybe more of an amplified sound, kind of how that happened and how you got into playing the blues.
Well, I just played acoustic when I first started playing and teaching myself. And then later, when I got to know some of the older players around Memphis, we all played acoustic. Although I did meet a guy that called himself Harmonica Joe. His real name was Coy Love. And he came over to Will Shade's house with an amplifier and a bullet mic. I don't remember what kind of bullet mic it was. I don't even remember what kind of amp it was, but I remember he had painted Harmonica Joe on it. And he was a sign painter, so he was painting on everything. But anyhow, that was one of the first times I encountered amplified harmonica. In Chicago, that's what it was all about, unless you're in the little folk clubs. But in the blues clubs, everybody was playing through an amp. And if it was a really nice club, they might even have a PA. If they didn't, people just sang and played through their amps.
You mentioned Will Shade, and I've seen written somewhere you were talking about Palmer McAfee, and I've seen Gus Cannon mentioned as well. And I play in a jug band, and I'm really into all that stuff. So it was nice to see some of the old guys mentioned. I mean, these days people talk about the old guys being the Chicago blues sound, but kind of the generation before that. Are they the guys who kind of inspired you to play?
Uh, did you say you're in a jug band?
Yeah, I play jug and
Oh,
and harmonica in a jug band. Yeah.
oh, good.
So, Will Shades, yeah, is a name I know well.
Well, I was glad to know a guy like Will Shade because he played guitar and harmonica, and I'm not sure of how he fits into the history of harmonica, but I was somewhere I got the opinion that he was one of the innovators. I mean, he was like playing lines on the harmonica instead of using it as sound effects like some people did. Uh, I'd like to know how he fits into the evolution of phrasing on the harmonica.
Mm.
But there were other guys around. There was a guy named Johnny Moment that played harmonica. Um, I remember seeing some guys on Beale Street. I don't know. I didn't know what their names were. Just a guy playing for tips. I remember one guy was a blind guy playing harmonica, and I can still see him. He was sitting on a. They used to make these wooden crates for Coca-Cola with little places for each bottle, and he had it turned up and was sitting on it like a chair, and he was playing and playing gospel tunes. And I asked him if he could play any blues, and he said, "I used to, but the Lord don't allow no blues." And that was the end of that conversation. But guys like that were around.
Yeah.
And then there was harmonica on the radio. Rufus Thomas had a radio show on WDIA in Memphis. It came on every night, I think about 9 o'clock. And his theme song was Hootin' Blues by Sonny Terry. And I used to like to be driving down Main Street in Memphis on a summer night with all my windows down. And right at 9, I'd turn it up full blast so they could hear Hootin' Blues by Sonny Terry.
Did you meet Sonny Terry?
Yeah, I did. I remember I was playing in Berkeley, California at a club called Mandrakes. And he came down there to see me, and we met and talked and had a real nice time. That was the only time I remember meeting him. I saw Brownie a lot more often. He lived in Oakland there, so he used to come bring his amplifier in and just sit in with us.
Yeah, I wish I got to see them play. Sonny is just one of those um, sort of kind of instantly recognizable sounds. Something you have, you've recorded so much stuff, and one of the things that I think you've become known for is the different positions you play in. You play
Yeah.
some really interesting stuff. Has that just come from your own kind of curiosity and inquisitive nature of trying to work things out on the harmonica?
Well, when I was first teaching myself, I didn't know anything about positions, or I thought a C harmonica was anything you played on it, you were in the key of C. But I gravitated to second position, not knowing that's what I was doing, which is interesting because I guess that's how it came to be known. A lot of other guys picked it up and were fooling around, and that just made sense to them to play that way. So then later in Chicago, I learned about first, second, and third. And then Walter Horton introduced me to fourth position, and I thought that was so far out. I saw little Walter, and I told him about it like a couple of weeks later. I remember him shrugging his shoulders and saying, "Well, that ain't nothing. You can play an E on a C harmonica too, which is fifth position." So I had never heard of fourth or fifth position, and these guys knew all about it.
Just hearing you talking about spending time with Big Walter, with Little Walter, to me, it's amazing to hear. Did it feel like there was something special going on at the time, or was it just you guys hanging out playing music?
It was kind of like just some guys hanging out. I mean, they accepted me, and I was just part of the crowd, the group, and they encouraged me, and uh, they just treated me like one of them. We drank together, hung out together, laughed together, played together. I mean, um, I felt I didn't feel excluded in any way. I was just part of the crowd and totally accepted. I mean, I didn't. When I first got to Chicago, I didn't even. I wasn't going around to all these blues clubs asking to sit in or, you know, holding up my harmonica. You know, I didn't even tell anybody I played. I was just happy to be hanging out. And coming from Memphis, I already knew how to drink. So I could hang out with the best of them, and I'd request tunes. I mean, guys like Muddy and Wolf and them, they just thought I was a fan because I'd request tunes, and it wasn't until one night when this waitress I got to know pretty good told Muddy, "You ought to hear Charlie play harmonica," and that changed everything because Muddy insisted I sit in, and from then on, as long as I knew Muddy, as long as Muddy was alive, if he knew I was there, he'd ask me to sit in. Uh, and then guys started offering me jobs, and boy, that got me focused. You're going to pay me? All right. That was my ticket out of the factory.
But I've read you worked as a ditch digger, concrete layer, moonshine runner. It sounds like you were doing loads of different jobs before kind of music became full time.
Well, most of everybody did. I mean, unless you were like Muddy or Wolf or somebody and having regular 45s coming out all the time and touring and having a band and all that, a lot of guys had day jobs or they would bounce back and forth. Back then in Chicago, you could get a job any day of the week. You could just walk into a factory and they just give you a broom till they found something for you to do, and you just sweep up until they put you on some machine. And then the gigs, you didn't have like one gig and that was it. You would have a weekly gig somewhere. It might be one night, like every Wednesday night, or it might be 4 nights, maybe Wednesday through Sunday at the same club for months, even years for some people. They or guys like Muddy and Wolf, and then they would have a home club where they would always play if they weren't out on the road somewhere. And like Muddy played at Pepper's Lounge, which is just around the corner from where he lived. Uh, um, I forgot what the question was.
I can't remember what the question was, but it was I was just asking about the jobs you did. How did it get to the point where you didn't need the day job anymore?
Well, when my first album came out, well, there were periods in Chicago when I could support myself on music, but uh, not the whole time. I would kind of go back and forth. There'd be some altercation where they would shut down the club, and so then I have to go find a job until I found another music job. But when my first album came out, wow, that put me on the road and gave me a career, and I just played music after that pretty much. I did have another couple of day jobs out in California as time went by. When the disco era came along, that really put a lot of people out of work.
Yeah.
I was sometimes involved in, well, activities that were against the law.
It's kind of the dark ages for blues music when it was just in the background somewhere.
Well, a guy's got to do what a guy's got to do to get by.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of the songs I've heard, your own songs seem to be taken from your life. So, I was listening to "I Had Trouble" earlier, and there's some like serious stuff in there. I imagine you take a lot of inspiration in your music from your experiences, your real life experience.
Sure, it's hard for me to sing about something I don't really relate to or resonate with. Um, So if I'm writing a song, it's from my experiences, or if I'm covering a song, it's for some reason it means something to me. It's not because it's just a popular song or something, or I think it's radio friendly or something. I can only do what makes sense to me.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things that really interests me with your music is blues music is the core of what you do, but then there's always these kind of other things going on with your albums. There's kind of Latin influences or other influences of other music from around the world. So I'm interested in how those influences have kind of come into your music.
Well, when I was growing up in Memphis and I was looking for blues records, I'd go around to junk stores, used furniture stores, looking for old blues 78s. And while I was looking for those, if anything that looked interesting, I'd get that too. I mean, back then, those 78s were like a nickel or a dime, you know. And I'd just buy anything that looked interesting and take it home and listen to it. And that way I discovered like Greek Rebettica music and flamenco and these other musics from other cultures that had a feeling that somehow reminded me of blues, like the scale or I mean, flamenco is really a lot like blues. It's got that same spirit, that toughness to it. So I've always been kind of on the lookout for other music from the heart. I call it music from the heart. And it seemed somewhere along the way I got the idea that probably every culture has its music of lament. You know, my baby left me. You know, there's a guy on the corner of every part of the world singing about my baby left me because it's a worldwide phenomenon. Uh, so that's how I discovered other music. And then also it's interesting to me to apply blues harmonica to something else and see if I can make it better or how it would fit, you know. So it was a lot of fun for me to play with Eliados Ochoa and Quarteto Patria from Cuba. And they liked what I did, and I loved what they did. And it was just effortless to play together. And we toured together too. And in fact, I just saw him maybe a couple of months ago. We had dinner in Miami, where his daughter lives. He still lives in Cuba, but he came to Miami and he wants to do something with me recording on it again, which is flattering to me. He's like a hero to me. I really, Ellie Addison Show was pretty cool dude, man. 7-string guitar, and he's great.
And who are your harmonica heroes? If you could bring anyone to dinner, whether it's someone you'd have to bring back from the dead, you know, in terms of harmonica players, who would you like to be hanging out with?
Gosh, there's just so many. It seemed like almost everybody had something to offer, you know, that's unique to them. I mean, you got like Bullet Williams, you know, that, that's a wild sound. Uh, who's that guy from Natchez? Papa Lightfoot, you know, he had a real crazy sound. I really liked the way he played. Of course, both Sonny Boys and both Walters. Uh, when I was looking for 78s in Memphis, I found a lot of John Lee Williamson 78s, and his style really, I really like the way I still really like the way he plays. It sounds real simple, but a lot of things that sound real simple are not, you know. Or even if you play the notes, it still doesn't sound like the way they did it, you know. Like
Yeah.
take a guy like Jimmy Reed. Everything about his music, his singing, the lyrics, his guitar playing, it all sounds real simple. But have you ever heard anybody that sounds like Jimmy Reed?
That like beautiful top end stuff, you know, there's just solos that, like you say, nobody does it quite like him.
Yeah, I mean, you can learn all the notes and play those notes. It still ain't going to be right. And there's more, there's stuff in there that you just can't even talk about.
One of my favorites is DeFord Bailey, and you know, I know Joe Falisco does a fantastic job with the pre-war stuff, but sometimes I'll sit and listen and try and work out a DeFord Bailey tune, and you know, there's a lot going on. But even if
Yeah,
I think I've got most of the notes, it's kind of like, well, it doesn't sound like he made it sound easy, you know?
yeah. A lot of people are not fond of country blues, but I think it has a lot of real sophisticated subtleties that you don't find in music that's beating you over the head. I mean, it can get real deep. So I really appreciate, you know, from the most country primitive sound to the most, you know, modern, ultra modern urban sound. If it's from the heart, that's what counts.
Yeah, yeah. So what were you hearing country blues before you moved to Memphis, before you spent time in Chicago? Were you hearing country blues? at home in Mississippi?
I either heard it on the radio, blues records like Sonny Boy Williamson or something, or I heard it on the street. I wasn't old enough to get in clubs when I was 18 when I left Chicago, but and I was big for my age. So when I got to Chicago, I could get in those clubs pretty easy. I'd wear a suit, and nobody ever said anything to me, except sometimes people wondered what I was doing there. And then later they say, "Well, when we first saw you come in here, we thought you were either crazy or you were a cop." I was always completely comfortable with black people. I never felt, I was raised not to be prejudiced. I mean, I like to think I would be that way on my own, but that's how I was raised. I was the only child of a single mom, and that's what she drilled into me, that God made everybody. If you mistreat somebody for the way they look, you're that's, God don't like that because that's His works. And plus, during the Second World War, my dad was away in the Navy and my mom was away. She worked in civil service. So for months, I'd be alone with what I call my other mother, a black lady named Velma. And my mom would come home and want to cook for me. And I said, "No, I want Velma's cooking." she, she said that kind of hurt her feelings, but she liked Velma's cooking too.
What's your favorite meal?
Restaurant here in Clarksdale called Rest Haven. They have lunch specials every day. And it's the kind of place they call it's a meat and three. You pick one meat and three different vegetables. So I like the thin fried pork chop with black eyed peas, cabbage, and butter beans, maybe, or maybe some cheese grits.
I realized today, I just did a little bit of reading up before the interview, and I realized there's loads of your albums I haven't got yet. I've got plenty of them, but you've made so many things. I should say I'm probably 8 or 9 years late, but congratulations on the Grammy. I mean, to be a Grammy winner, the album with Ben Harper, which I've got that one, fantastic album.
Thank you. Well, the album I did with Elvin Bishop is up for a Grammy, and it might win.
Well, fingers crossed. Let's hope it gets it. That's one of the ones I need to get actually, and I'm going to get hold of that. I'm going to buy it tonight online. So,
100
yeah,
Years of the Blues, yeah.
yeah, fantastic. So that's a mix of, is it some covers and some originals?
Uh, I think it's mostly originals. I can't remember if there's covers. There might be.
Hmm.
I never play my records, so I don't know what's on them. I mean, once I've heard it, I don't want to hear it anymore.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I mean, yeah, listening back to yourself when it's out there in the world, let other people listen to it.
Well, the problem is I hear it because I'll be thinking, well, why did I do that? Why did I do it this other way? I mean, gosh, I should have done, so I can't really enjoy it. I just hear how I should have done it.
And are you gigging at the minute, or will you be gigging maybe as the dreaded COVID, maybe life gets back to normal?
The only gigs I'm doing is the ones that are outdoors, like at a festival, and if I can drive there without having to get on an airplane.
Hmm.
Later in the year, I'm going to have to fly, and I hope it's going to be safer then. But I'm not. I never did like flying anyhow. But you have a good excuse not to. To go to the airport is like it's the same stress level as going to court.
Ah, okay. Yeah. Yeah, I can understand that. And it takes forever with security and stuff now.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I've heard that you travel light in terms of equipment. So I think you did an interview with a friend of mine for a blues magazine, Mark Cole, who's involved with Fat Tone amps, and I think
Yeah.
he said he sent you one of their preamp, their Fat Box things.
Yeah, I love that preamp. It's great because it's small, very portable, and you can just use it with the PA.
Yeah,
A lot of times when you get somewhere and they say they have amplifiers for you, well, I don't know where they got them from, but they're not any good. Or they'll say they couldn't find the one you wanted, you know, but we have this, and it's just it's not right, you know. So this is a great thing to have. The fat,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. Dave Walker, who runs the company, he's a great guy. He plays harp. He's a sax player and a harp player, but he's so into the equipment side of it. I mean, I've been to his. He lives about an hour from here, and he built me an amp. And I've been to his workshop, and he starts talking, and I'm with him for about 30 seconds, and then it's over my head because I can't. I've never been good at the practical side of things. He gets circuit boards out, and they look very exciting, but I don't understand them, you know. But he's so into it and so dedicated to the craft of it. It's good to have people like that who want to help harmonica players sound good.
Absolutely, because I ain't gonna do it.
Did you ever kind of have a big 4x10, you know, basement or like a huge amp, or have you always kind of not been bothered about that stuff?
Oh, I've got a lot of amps. I got probably four Sonny Junior amps. I don't know if you've heard of Sonny Junior, but he makes just a killer harmonica amp. I mean, I've never heard anything better. And he makes different models. He has the Avenger and the Cruncher and the Super Cruncher and the Sonny Junior. I think the Sonny Junior is 410, just like a Fender Bassman in a way, but only it's souped up really. I mean, the response, as soon as you just barely hit a note, it's just out there. It's like the difference between driving a tractor and a sports car. I mean, this sports car is going to weave in and out of traffic and respond to the slightest little tap on the gas. That's like playing through a Sonny Junior amplifier.
Wow, yeah. The name rings a bell. I will. I'll have a look.
Every
I've
little piece of it, he's researched. I mean, like nobody would do this. Uh, he just came up with the very best part all the way through the entire makeup of the amp. Every wire, every little condenser, and everything.
yeah,
So in his search for tone,
yeah. That's amazing. That's dedication.
tone's where it's at.
Is there anyone in terms of like modern players that you listen to for for tone or just for their playing style in general, or is it do you always go back to the same old guys?
Well, I don't really listen to anybody, but the people I do really enjoy listening to would be like William Clark. I really liked his tone and his attack and his phrasing, and he was a good friend too, and I miss that guy. Uh, Mitch Kashmar is a good player. I think he's an interesting player. Uh, Today, there's so many harmonica players. I don't even know where to begin. I mean, and a lot of them are mostly just technically interesting. They don't really have, like we were talking about before, that stuff you can't really define. But I can appreciate all that technique. But a lot of people, especially people that want to play really fast and play a lot of notes, to me, it's like somebody that has a huge vocabulary and nothing to say. I mean, okay, you got all these notes, but you're not saying anything with them. You're just playing them and playing them and playing them. Like it's all about technique. But for me, technique should support the music, not the music just be a vehicle for technique. It's when you're playing all those notes and fast as you can, it's like you're saying, "Hey, mom, look at me."
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think I really like Mitch Kashmar. I think he plays some really nice stuff at the top end, lovely sweet sound, and he gets this lovely kind of vibrato on those blow notes. Again, quite a distinctive sound.
He's
Um,
a real tasteful player. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
it's interesting to me.
yeah.
A
But
lot of guys are real good, but they just sound like everybody else.
yeah, I agree about I don't think you said this phrase, but this phrase comes to mind, serve the song, you know, rather than it just being an excuse for soloing. showing off kind of thing. And I like that in some of your songs, how you'll switch harmonica to get to play a different position to suit that part of the song, rather than there's guys out there who could play every note on one harmonica, but are they going to make it sound good? Whereas you kind of pick the right harmonica to suit the song.
Yeah, sometimes you want the introduction to be with a lower pitched harmonica and then the solo with something pitched a little higher.
Yeah, I like that. And then that part of the song is then interesting and yeah, stands out.
I'm still learning. There's no end to it.
The way it goes with music, doesn't it? There's always something else to learn and something to kind of pique your interest, and you go, oh, what's that? And oh, maybe if I try this.
That's part of the beauty of it. That there's not an end to it, and it's always something new to discover or research.
Ah, fantastic. Beautiful.
Around or that's fourth position.
Yeah, that's lovely. Lovely. It's inspiring. I never dare go, well, I don't really play, beyond first, second, and third, really. 12th, maybe sometimes. But fourth and fifth are scary to me.
Well, one easy way to learn fifth is House of the Rising Sun. Those notes really lay right. You start on the second whole blow. That's fifth position. I'm playing an A flat harp, by the way.
Yeah, that's really, really nice. Really, really lovely tone that it gets. Do you prefer fourth and fifth to playing in third position?
What about third position?
Do you prefer fourth and fifth positions to third position, or is it just suiting, what suiting the song again?
I don't really prefer one or the other. I mean, sometimes in a certain situation, the a certain position seems to suggest itself, and that just seems to be the best one for my way of thinking at that time.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, it's interesting to. Sometimes I'll just play an instrumental, a CD, and I'll try all maybe five different positions just for fun, just to see how they would fit,
Yeah.
and just to stay in shape.
That's good.
And you do the same with the chromatic too. There, I don't play much fifth position, but on the chromatic, but first, second, third, and fourth. Fourth is great on chromatic, and I love first position on chromatic too. It's endlessly fascinating. And then, a lot of times, a lot of harmonica players don't think about this, but when you're playing through the chord changes, the 1-4-5 blues chord changes, you can change positions with the chord change. You know that. A lot of it's surprising how a lot of players don't never thought of that. Like when you get if in second position, when you go to the 5 chord, you play third position, and 4 chord is first position.
Yeah, it's something I've been doing a series on my YouTube channel recently about positions, and it's always something that I'm always trying to find a better way of explaining it to people who maybe haven't explored different positions, or harmonica players seem to be scared of anything theoretical. And even if it isn't theoretical, because it's actually a very practical thing. But as soon as you're talking about, oh well, when it, like you say, when it goes to the 4 chord or when it goes to the 5 chord, even just hearing the idea of, oh, now you're talking too
Yeah.
theoretical for me. It's almost, it seems to be harmonica players are a bit allergic to it or something.
Well, I remember Shaky Horton telling me, uh, he just said, learn your patterns. And to me, that just kind of sums it all up. Patterns and tone centers.
Yeah, learn your patterns. That's a good thing.
When I was teaching myself, at some point I realized that, like you find two notes an octave apart, there's got to be a way to get from one to the other, like little stepping stones. So you play the first note, okay, which is the next note I want to hear? Oh, that's not there. This will work, and then all the way up to the octave. So you have that pattern of how to tiptoe from one note to the other, and you can base solos off of that pattern. But that's the pattern for that chord. And if you go to you know first position from second, then you have another pattern.
Do you ever
So
play harmonicas that are that aren't tuned to Richter? That have another minor tuning or any other kind of note layout?
I fool around with them, but they don't. They're kind of fun, but I don't ever use them. I never take them on the road with me. People give me a lot of stuff like that, and uh, well, there's a harmonica that Sidell makes called the Soloist Pro, which is really good, and also well, there's different. I don't know what the real name of this is. This is a low D. It's a 12-hole diatonic. Has extra bass notes. But this other one is, um, I forget what it's called. It's a diminished thing. You can play, all the notes are there like a chromatic. that's, that's good if you want to play some jazz solo.
Yeah, that's nice to hear those diminished chords. Really lovely.
Yeah, Sidell is my favorite out of all of them. I don't know what you play or what you know about Sidell, but some people say Seidel, but they're the oldest harmonica company in the world. And the model I like is called the 1847 with the wood comb, stainless steel reeds. And it's as good as some custom harmonicas I've played right out of the box. Airtight, very responsive, and they seem to stay in tune and last longer than any other brand. So that's all I play.
Yeah, I have tried an 1847, and yeah, it played beautifully. Really, really lovely instrument.
Since they last so long, it makes them cheaper in a way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It works out cheaper. Yeah. I just tried the pentaharp, the Hohner pentaharp. They sent me one, and it was messing with my mind, because you're so used to the Richter layout, and then it was kind of like I know they're really aiming it at guitarists, aren't they? But it's yeah, it was really strange, to find the notes all in a different place.
Pentaharp is called.
Yeah, so it's got the blue.
Pentatonic.
It's got the minor pentatonic scale. It's actually got the full blues scale, but kind of in first position. So you start on one blow, and you don't need to bend notes. So you can just go up the blues scale in 3 octaves, without bending. It's really strange.
Have you heard of the circular tuning?
I've heard of it. I don't actually know what it is.
Saddle makes circular tuning, and man, what a lovely! I don't know how to explain it, but the melodies just pour out. You can't stop, and it just seems to play itself. Uh, I really recommend trying out a circular tuned harmonica from Saddle. It's a wonderful harmonica. I've used them for movies when they've had me do soundtracks, and I needed something that didn't right away sound bluesy. They didn't want blues at a certain part, and I mean, you can make it sound bluesy, but or you can make it just sound real pretty.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds really, really interesting. So what does the future hold musically for Charlie Musselwhite then?
Well, I got besides the album I told you about that's coming out, I have another album in the can with my band. It'll probably be maybe another year from now before it comes out. And next fall, you might see me in a movie. Uh, I've been in some other movies, but this is pretty special. Martin Scorsese is doing his first Western, and
Wow.
it's based on a book called Killers of the Flower Moon, which is a true story about these murders that happened in Osage County, Oklahoma in the 20s. And if you read that book, you'll see there's a picture of an outlaw named Al Spencer in there. He had a gang and they robbed banks and trains. And I have Al Spencer's rifle sitting right over here because he died in a shootout with my grandfather. And my grandfather's name was Charlie Musselwhite. When I told Scorsese about that, he thought it was like something mystical because here's Charlie Musselwhite coming back to the scene of the crime. You know? That's not in the book, but that's what happened.
That's amazing. So what's the movie going to be called?
It's either called Killers of the Flower Moon or they might call it Gray Horse, which is the name of a town in Oklahoma.
I'll keep an eye out for that. That sounds amazing.
They didn't let me play harmonica in it, but that's okay.
I'm surprised. I thought they'd want you to play harmonica in it.
Uh, well, they just wanted me to play this guy that I play in this scene. I have like a dozen lines with an actor named Jesse Plemons, and he's real good too.
I heard that you were sort of the inspiration for Elwood Blues. I don't know if that's true or not. Do you know?
Yeah, Danny Aykroyd's a friend of mine, and he's told me more than once about how he used my. Well, here, let me back up. When he was in college, I used to play a club in Canada where he lived, and he would come to this club and see me there all the time. I didn't know him then, but he would see me come in wearing shades and my hair slicked back and a black suit. I used to wear suits back then, and my harp case. Uh, and he took that look and made it. I never wore a hat, so he added the hat, and he added the handcuffs to the harp case. I never had any handcuffs, but and I've seen him say that in interviews, printed interviews too, and he's told me that. So I imagine it is true. He got the look from.
You seem to be amazingly well connected. The friends you have, the company you keep, the people you've met and worked with is an amazing collection.
Well, if you're around long enough, you'll have some pretty strange experiences. I'm just a a regular guy in very irregular situations. I have to put those stories in my book.
Have you got a book coming out?
I'm working on one with Jim O'Neill. I don't know if you know that name.
I don't think
He
so.
started the Living Blues magazine,
Okay.
and he's a real authority on blues from a academic point of view. I mean, he really knows the history and real good guy to know and work with.
Is it going to be a kind of autobiography of, about your whole life, or what's it going to be?
I guess it's just going to. We'll see what we got when we get through with it. I don't know. Mostly it's just me telling stories.
Well, I bet that there'll be some amazing stories in there, so I'll keep an eye out. Definitely get hold of that. Thank you so much for sitting down to talk to me. I really appreciate it.
Well, maybe sometime in the future we can do it again. And
That would be great. I mean, I've always got more questions, so yeah, I'll definitely let you know. And I hope to make it to Clarksdale one day.
Well, come on to Clarksdale. I'll take you for a pork chop.
Haha, yes, that'd be amazing. I will do.
Well, don't forget 145.
145.
Safe.
You too. Bye.